Discover the incredible poll my dad shared. Should I be the one to be erased from our family? Ryan's heart sank as he scrolled through his father's social media feed, a chill racing down his spine at the sight of a poll his dad had shared. Should Ryan be removed from our family's annual reunion? The laughter of his nieces and nephews echoed in his mind, contrasting sharply with the jaws dropping around him. A tangle of emotions swirled within him: outrage, confusion, and an unsettling fear. Was he really that unwanted? Swallowed by feelings of inferiority, Ryan felt the walls of his life closing in. As a graphic designer in a place that cherished the blue-collar hustle, he was the black sheep and outsider in his own family. Every Thanksgiving, Ryan sensed his father's disappointment over his choice of career. Michael, his older brother, rose to prominence, meticulously climbing the corporate ladder as an engineer. Success snuggled comfortably in his brother's pocket. Each year, as he gazed at their proud family photos hanging in his parents' house, Ryan wondered if he even belonged to the same dynasty, if he was simply a footnote in their history. Would they erase him if they could? It was a question that twisted his gut and squeezed his chest with a desperation that left him breathless. He dove deeper into his sketchbook, channeling his anguish into every stroke of the pencil. Ryan traveled the streets of their small Midwestern town, indulging in local history, sketching murals that honored the hardworking factory workers who laid the groundwork for the lives they led. Each mural reflected a bittersweetness, their sacrifice sewn into the fabric of who he felt he needed to be. But the reality gnawed at him. Was that enough to dilute his father's disapproval? Would these murals transform him from a disappointment to a source of pride? These thoughts clawed at him relentlessly. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of a screen. Now, let's continue. The day of confrontation hung in the air like an impending storm. Ryan fidgeted, the weight of uncertainty pressing down on him as he dialed his father's number. Each ring amplified the tension, wrapping around him like a noose. The moment his father answered, Ryan felt his heart race, his voice a trembling whisper. "I saw the poll, why would you do that?" Silence lingered like an awkward guest. When his father finally spoke, the words poured out like leaking poison. "Sometimes it feels like we're just carrying dead weight." With each statement, Ryan's heart shattered a little more. What he thought was a simple poll revealed deeper fears in his father. Was he a disappointment at a level Ryan never fully understood? Would they really be better off without him? He could feel his art distort into a twisted reflection of himself. Did the murals signify hope, or were they a desperate cry for validation? As the weight of his father's judgment settled, Ryan was left at the canvas of his life, racing thoughts spiraling through his mind. The vibrant colors swirled around him, but he felt muted, trapped in a world where success seemed as distant as the stars. What now? Could he ever prove himself worthy? As he stood at the edge of the precipice, the truth began to reveal itself. Family could be both his sanctuary and his prison. And in that hazy moment, the question remained, would he be able to ever weave through the strands that tied him to their expectations, or would he remain forever tangled in desperation? Ryan put down his phone, his father's words echoing in his mind like a relentless chorus. Dead weight. He paced the cramped living room, an impulsive energy surging through him. It was time to confront the darkness head-on. No more letting the weight of family expectations dictate his actions. He felt an urgency, a pulse that beckoned him to take charge of his narrative rather than play a supporting role in their story. He opened his sketchbook, the familiar pages ever present, awaiting his creative spark. Today, the colors seemed muted, as though dampened by the shadows lingering in his heart. The images of workers that usually inspired him felt stale, like remnants of a past he couldn't shake off. As he stared blankly at the page, questions filled his mind. What if he created something that transcended mere tribute? What if his art could reshape not just his identity, but how his family saw him? Could he transform their perception? Resolved, Ryan picked up his pencil and began to sketch something entirely different, a piece that embodied his struggle. He envisioned a mural that integrated both the grit of blue-collar life and the brightness of innovation, a fusion of his own world as a graphic designer with the legacy of the factory workers, a bridge between his art and the family's expectations. Each line, each stroke, would be an act of defiance against the dead-weight narrative his father had cast around him. This would be a celebration of individuality, a proclamation that he was more than just a failed expectation. The day transformed into night as Ryan immersed himself in this new project. As he poured himself into the mural, he found a rhythm that breathed life into his artistry. Each section became a release, a clarion call, a canvas that narrated his identity, his struggles woven into the historical tapestry of his town. This was not merely a collection of colors. It was a manifestation of his journey, his refusal to be erased, to apologize for being different. But as he worked, lingering anxiety wrapped tightly around him. Would this creation earn him approval? Or would it be met with the same indifference that haunted his childhood? Ryan shook his head, dispelling the doubt. Approval sought through others had led him to despair. He had to shift the focus. The true measure of success lay in his self-expression, in crafting something authentic that resonated within him. Outside others' shadows, his heart raced with excitement, but the fear loomed large. Could exposing his true self fracture the fragile bonds within his family? He knew his risk was substantial, yet there was also liberation in this confrontation with vulnerability. In pursuing this mural, he was confronting the very beliefs that had shackled him. It was, paradoxically, a path toward regaining control over his narrative. As the sun began to rise, casting a warm glow across his evolving masterpiece, Ryan caught a glimpse of himself in the reflection of his unfinished work. For the first time, he felt an ember of pride flicker alive. His artistic identity was not a liability. It was a gift, an opportunity to force the family to recognize the depth of who he truly was. In that moment, he made a decision that felt electrifying yet terrifying. The time had come not only to unveil his mural, but to confront his family again. He would show them this fusion of struggles, a testament to his journey and resilience. But would they embrace it? Or would it push them further away? An overwhelming wave of uncertainty flooded him, but he steeled himself. The next step loomed on the horizon. He would invite them to witness his creation. That confrontation would force a reckoning not just for himself, but for the family he had questioned his place within. Ryan understood that the question was not whether he would remain a part of their history, but how he would forge his pathway within it. With resolve, he picked up his phone again, ready to send that invitation. But a single thought now stirred in his mind. Could this mural finally assert his voice, or would his family still choose to silence it? Ryan's fingers hovered over his phone, the weight of the upcoming invitation pressing down on him. Each beat of his heart echoed with the potential consequences. Joy, anger, acceptance, rejection, every reaction framed by the mural he had crafted with painstaking care. It was his moment, a culmination of defiance and belonging. But fear gripped him tightly, a familiar companion whispering doubts in his ear. What if they laughed? What if they dismissed it as trivial? He remembered the days when his sketches were met with disapproval, their sharp words etching away at his confidence. It wasn't just about the mural, it was about his journey, his existence. Did he dare to hope for a transformation in their perception? With a deep breath, he exhaled the anxiety that clouded his mind. This was no longer simply a project, it was a narrative of his rebirth. If he could withstand their scrutiny, perhaps he could emerge into a new identity, an artist aligned with his values, not just the expectations they had carved for him. He needed to construct the invitation carefully. It had to reflect his passion yet be straightforward enough to eliminate misinterpretations. He typed slowly, focusing on each word as if they were strokes of his drawing. Dear family, I've been working on a mural that I would love for you to see. It's important to me that you witness this part of my journey. It would mean so much if you could come. He read over the message again. It felt sincere, hopeful, but also perilous. Just as he hovered over the send button, he hesitated. What if they come? What if they see it, but refuse to understand? The knot in his stomach tightened with the awareness that his journey could either unite or alienate him from the very people who shaped his narrative. He wrestled with that inner turmoil, torn between the need for their acceptance and the resolve to claim his independence. Finally, he pressed send, feeling an immediate rush of adrenaline mixed with dread. It was done. The invitation was launched into the digital void. Now, the fear of uncertainty filled the space left by his decision. Ryan turned to the mural, now half-finished yet pulsing with stories that desperately wanted to be told. His days were filled with frantic strokes of paint, yet his mind swirled with anxious anticipation. Every time he caught a glimpse of the mural, he felt the duality of excitement and apprehension. The emotions were intertwined, his spirit teetering between liberation and the inevitable confrontation. As the day approached, he could no longer ignore the growing pressure within him. Ryan dedicated himself to the details, finishing touches that sharpened the imagery and expanded the narrative of his mural, a juxtaposition of struggle and hope. It depicted his family and their history, yet twisted it into something vibrantly different, embracing change rather than resisting it. He understood that adaptability was part of this journey. He could reshape his identity, but it also meant risking others' reticence. In the back of his mind, doubts arose about what he would say, how he could explain the intricacies of his artistic vision without being misinterpreted. The night before the reveal, a whirlpool of thoughts conspired against him. Would they see the beauty in his defiance? Would they recognize it as an extension of family legacy, rather than a betrayal? His stomach churned as an unnerving silence settled over his apartment. Ryan stood before the mural, the image of his life etched upon the concrete canvas. It reflected joy blended with hardship, innovation alongside tradition. In that moment, he realized he was not merely attempting to salvage approval, he was redefining what it meant to be part of that family. Yet as dawn broke and the sun illuminated the edges of his artwork, a terrifying possibility crept into his mind. What if they didn't see the love in his creation? What if he was still just dead weight to them? Would this mural, this labor of love, be enough to catalyze a change, or would it only deepen their divide? With a sense of urgency threading through him, he recognized that this was more than art. This was his life on the line. Tomorrow would force their responses into the open, and he couldn't shake the gnawing anxiety as he contemplated the answer to a question echoing louder by the second. Could he redefine his acceptance at home, or was the risk of exposure too great? As the light spilled through the window, Ryan's heart raced, each beat feeling like a countdown to Judgment Day. He stared at the mural, an intricate collage of colors and emotions, waiting to be unveiled. It was his voice crystallized on the wall, a self-portrait of resilience, painted with the brushstrokes of his struggles. Yet the fear of criticism was a suffocating weight on his chest. He moved purposefully through his studio, a space thick with the scent of fresh paint and the vibrant energy of creation. The mural was more than just pigment on concrete. It was a manifestation of his journey, a declaration of who he had become. But the nagging thought of how his family would perceive it gnawed at him. Would they understand? Would they see the complexity of his emotional landscape, or would they dismiss it as nothing more than a rebellious act? In a moment of reflection, Ryan contemplated the risks he had taken to get to this point. Each brushstroke carried the weight of his personal evolution, a leap into the abyss of vulnerability. Bold colors intertwined to speak of happiness and despair, of acceptance and rejection. The mural felt like a mirror, reflecting not just what he wanted to say, but what he had lived. Yet, with each recollection of past criticisms, doubt crept in like an unwelcome guest. He gathered his painting supplies and meticulously prepared for the day ahead. Although this moment was monumental, it also demanded clarity of purpose. Ryan understood that if he shied away from sharing the intent behind his work, it could leave an opening for misinterpretation. He decided he would speak from the heart, to express the love intertwined with defiance. He rehearsed what he might say, a simple yet profound statement about art's function in personal storytelling. As he finished the last details, a sense of calm began to wash over him. Each stroke was a promise, an affirmation of his worth. It was all part of his commitment to authenticity, reinforcing his conviction that he wouldn't compromise his artistic vision for the sake of acceptance. Finally, the designated hour arrived, and he stood beside the mural, a nervous energy thrumming through him. The invitation's responses had varied. Some expressed curiosity, while others were more reticent. The uncertainty of their reactions loomed over him like a shadow. He felt a surge of determination. This was more than an exhibition. It was a doorway to redefine his narrative. As family members began to gather, he placed his hands on the smooth surface of the mural, feeling the texture of his creation. Each visitor's arrival stirred a mix of enthusiasm and dread within him. What if the words he prepared failed to resonate? What if they chose to see only the rebellion and not the depth of emotion he had poured into it? He watched them approach, their expressions a mix of apprehension and curiosity. This was his moment, a chance to confront not just their perspectives, but his own doubts about their love for him. Ryan opened his mouth, the words ready to escape, but fear threatened to suffocate his voice. Suddenly, a brave thought sparked within him. What if he turned the conversation on its head? Instead of seeking their approval, he could ask them what they saw. By putting the onus of interpretation on them, he would reclaim his narrative, relinquishing the need for their validation, yet sowing the seeds of understanding. As he stepped forward, preparing to speak, a voice cut through his resolve, theirs expressed with discontent, echoing old criticisms. The moment announced its chaos with a shattering clarity, forcing Ryan to confront his fears. The time had come to face them. The mural was ready, but was he? Ryan swallowed hard, grappling with the sudden surge of old wounds reopened. The murmur of dissent rippled through the gathered family members, each voice fragmenting the atmosphere he had painstakingly built. Searching their faces, he could feel the weight of his father's gaze, laden with unspoken expectations. He took a deep breath, centering himself with the resolve to stand firm. "Tell me what you see," he urged, letting the words escape like a hesitant whisper, but with growing conviction. The very act felt like stepping into a tempest, but he was tired of chasing validation. He wanted to hear how they interpreted his journey laid bare before them. The mural wasn't just an expression, it was an invitation to dialogue. "What do you think you're doing here?" His father shot back, arms crossed, brows knitted in disapproval. "This isn't art. It's just chaos." The stinging words brought a sharp intake of breath from Ryan. Pain twisted in his chest. Chaos. That accusation burrowed deep into his psyche, as all the times he had felt misunderstood flashed before him. But rather than recoiling, he took another step forward. "It's chaos, yes, but it's my chaos. It's a part of who I am." Ryan's heart was in his throat as he faced the whirlwind of mixed emotions. His mother shifted uncomfortably, her silent worry brewing beneath the surface. This was his chance to bridge the gap. Perhaps he could show them what lay beneath the color and chaos, the story woven into every brushstroke. "Look closely," he encouraged, gesturing towards the mural. "Every line, every hue expresses the battles I've faced, the love I fought for, the pain I've endured." He pointed toward a section depicting a vibrant sunrise mingled with storm clouds. "That represents hope amidst despair. I want you to see that it's not just a floral explosion of color, it's a part of my journey." His sister, visibly taken aback, questioned, "But couldn't you have done something more traditional?" Her voice was gripped with worry and confusion. "Maybe I could have," Ryan acknowledged, feeling the sting of resistance in her tone. "But in doing so, I would have dishonored my truth. I had to go against the grain, even if it meant risking your acceptance." His own words hit him hard as he spoke them, a truth that he had avoided acknowledging until now. Did he still crave acceptance from them more than the satisfaction of standing firmly in his authentic self? The room fell silent except for the rhythmic cadence of his heartbeat thrumming in his ears. Did they even know how their words resonated deeply in his psyche? How often had he altered his existence choices, dreams, and art for the hope of fitting into their mold? He braced for the counterarguments that typically came from his family, ready for the onslaught of concerns and rebuttals. But instead, An unexpected moment of introspection enveloped the space. Individual expressions began to shift from judgment to contemplation. Perhaps something shifted in him, a certainty gleaming amidst the uncertainty. "Can any of you see my journey?" he asked, surrendering to vulnerability, yearning for connection rather than division. "Can you appreciate the complexity of the struggle that led me here?" Their gaze softened, if only slightly, revealing a glimpse of understanding amidst the tension. For the first time, he felt the possibility of building a bridge instead of confronting a wall. As the atmosphere thickened with contemplation, Ryan quietly reflected on the personal empowerment this moment provided, recognizing his art as a vessel for healing and expression. In a world that regularly imposed limits, he had bulldozed those barriers with hues of defiance. Nevertheless, he couldn't shake the remaining doubt. Was this reconciliation, or simply a truce in a continuing battle? As his family members exchanged glances, he could sense the pivot in their stance. The blood in his veins quickened, not just from hope, but from the dawning realization that he could redefine his narrative. Which would it be, acceptance or confrontation? Suddenly his father stepped closer, a contemplative look clouding his features. "Maybe we need to talk more about this later." The palpable unease contorted into an unformed question hung in the air. What revelations would follow? Ryan knew tomorrow would prove to be an even greater test of not just their perspectives, but of his identity. The mural was just the beginning. The real unveiling was yet to come. Ryan lay awake that night, the hum of past conversations echoing in his mind as shadows darted across the walls of a small apartment. He stared at the ceiling, replaying his father's reaction, the tight lines of disapproval etched on his face, and the resigned tone that betrayed his frustration. They hadn't really seen the struggle behind the colors. Was their inability to appreciate his art a reflection of their inability to appreciate him? As dawn crept in through the window, bathing his room in soft light, Ryan's thoughts crystallized. He needed to build on this momentum. This was not just about the mural anymore. This was about transformation, his and theirs. How could he make them understand him if he didn't first delve deeper into his own understanding? He felt the swell of determination rising within, a whisper urging him to explore his own depths, not just as an artist, but as a person. Fueled by resolve, Ryan decided to journal. He needed to untangle the threads of his emotions. Words flowed from him, capturing the complexity of his journey, the disappointments, the triumphs, the relentless fight for his identity in a familial landscape that felt foreign. "I am the vibrancy they dismiss," he wrote, each stroke on the intricate canvas of my life a testament to battles fought within and outside of me. I refuse to play the role of antagonist in my own story. With each word, he felt lighter, the weight of others' expectations slowly lifting. This was the first step toward clarity, the path toward not just acceptance but advocacy for his journey. Later that afternoon, Ryan decided to visit the studio of a mentor who had significantly shaped his artistic vision. The sun-drenched space, filled with the scent of turpentine and a cacophony of colors, breathed life into his creative spirit. His mentor, a seasoned artist with wild curls and an infectious laughter, noticed the cloud of contemplation wrapping around Ryan. "Your art is a reflection of who you are, kid. What's holding you back?" Ryan hesitated, wrestling with the words. "It's my family. They don't see me. They don't understand my art. I'm afraid that by choosing this path, I'm losing them." His mentor leaned against the backdrop of vibrant canvases, considering Ryan's words with an intensity that felt almost palpable. What if the truth of your art is the key to bridging that gap? If they can't understand your art, maybe they need to witness the process behind it. Produce something that tells your story clearly, where your voice can be heard. The idea struck Ryan like a bolt of inspiration. Instead of wrestling with the weight of their expectations, he could channel his struggles into another piece, an experience that conveyed his truth in a more direct format. He could blend vibrant colors with poignant imagery, but more importantly, he could integrate elements of his family's influence, both positive and negative, that shaped who he was. This was no longer merely an argument against chaos. It would be an honest dialogue, a multi-layered exploration of connections fractured and attempted mended. Create something they can't ignore, his mentor encouraged, igniting a flicker of excitement in Ryan's chest. Art can be more intimate than words. It's a language that might just breach the walls. The days that followed were a whirlwind of creativity. Ryan became consumed with purpose as he applied layer upon layer to the canvas, each hue resonating with the raw pulse of his emotions. He painted late into the night, the world falling silent as he meticulously crafted the intricate patterns that told his story. Once again, this was more than a surface-level representation of chaos. It was an evolution of self-discovery. He hoped it would resonate with his family, not as a declaration of his defiance, but as an open invitation for understanding. As the final layer dried, and he stepped back to admire his work, Ryan felt a sense of impending dread and exhilaration. He knew he was facing a pivotal point, not just an artistic endeavor, but an exploration of the individual he had grown into. The mural had sparked a conversation, but this new piece would demand dialogue. Trembling with both anticipation and fear, he scheduled a dinner with his family, the perfect backdrop to unveil his latest creation. Would they understand the intention behind it, the grappling with love and acceptance? Would this new work invite the kind of connection he yearned for? The day loomed ahead, heavy with potential and uncertainty. Did the family he longed to bridge a gap with possess the capacity to appreciate the artwork that came from his heart? Knowing they held the keys to a much deeper conversation, he wondered, could this new piece change everything? With his heart racing, a looming thought occupied his mind. What if they still couldn't see him? Ryan awoke with a determined heart, the weight of the coming evening pressing against him. The city outside his window began to stir, a cacophony of life that seemed both distant and immediate. His mural stood proudly in his mind, a brilliant explosion of color representing the tumult of his emotions, yet at that moment, all he could feel was a tight ball of anxiety nestled deep within him. He moved through the morning routine on autopilot, each brush of his toothbrush and each step toward the coffee maker imbued with the gravity of what he was about to do. Doubts reared their ugly heads in his mind, gnawing at him like hungry dogs. What if dinner dissolved into another confrontation? What if they merely brushed off his painting as a phase, a whim he would outgrow? With each sip of coffee, clarity broke through the haze of anxiety. This wasn't just a dinner or a paint unveiling. It was a testament, a declaration of who he was becoming. He had engaged deeply with his emotions in the weeks prior to this moment, transformed his chaos into coherence on canvas. The life he wished to share with his family blinked before him, beckoning like a flickering neon sign. As the day progressed, Ryan occupied his thoughts with logistics. He carefully arranged the dinner setting, selecting his mother's favorite plates and making sure the candles were lit warmly upon the dining table. This was not about pretense. It was an offering, an attempt to bleed the walls he had felt creeping between them. When his family finally arrived, he could feel the tension as palpable as the odor of roasted chicken wafting from the kitchen. They whisked through the doorway one by one. His father, stern yet curious, his mother, eyes darting nervously, and his sister, the peacemaker, already sensing the electric atmosphere. Everyone settled around the table, after the initial small talk gave way to an awkward silence. Ryan's pulse quickened, his gut twisted, and yet he fought against the suffocating emotions clawing at him. "Before we eat, I have something I want to share," he said, his voice gaining strength. "Is it your art again?" His father interjected, eyebrows raised high. "Actually, yes. This is different. I need you to hear me. I've poured my heart into this." Ryan could feel the internal conflict writhe within him like a living entity. His art hadn't just been a hobby. It was a reflection of his existence, encapsulating every emotion of his journey. He gestured toward an adjacent wall where the new work hung, draped in a sheer cloth. With trembling fingers, he pulled the fabric away, revealing the piece. Vibrant colors swirled with darker undertones, silhouettes depicting moments of connection, and fragments where shadows loomed large, each segment representing an aspect of their family story, filled with laughter and love, but also pain and distance. The room grew heavy with silence. His mother approached cautiously, her eyes scanning the piece, while his father's face betrayed a sense of bewilderment. Is this us? His mother's question floated into the air, breaking the stillness. Yes. It's me trying to make sense of us, Ryan replied, his vulnerability now exposed. Glimmers of understanding shone in his sister's eyes, but his father remained distant, worn by years of stubbornness. Art can be subjective, Ryan. He finally spoke, the familiar icy edge returning to his tone. You need to learn that not everyone will appreciate your view. The words crashed into Ryan like thunder, igniting the internal storm within him. Suddenly, all the momentum he'd gathered felt threatened by his father's disapproving stance. But that is the point, he managed to say. I'm asking for you to see me even if it's uncomfortable. For the first time, he fully faced his father. A terms of engagement challenge hung in the air. It was a confrontation he knew was necessary, testing the very foundation upon which their relationship rested. There it was, the pivotal moment where everything could shift. Would they step into this vulnerability with him? Or would old patterns swallow his plea for understanding? Ryan's heart raced as the silence strangled the room. All he hoped for now was the sliver of recognition that might flicker in their eyes, his art demanding a dialogue that reached far beyond the surface. But time stood still, and it dawned on him that this was only the beginning of a deeper conversation. What he didn't yet know was how this single moment could redefine everything, or if it would send him spiraling further into isolation. The silence felt like a suffocating fog, but it barely penetrated the depth of Ryan's thoughts. His father's words echoed ominously, each syllable a reminder of their historical distance. In that moment, Ryan confronted everything he had been before, struggling with acceptance, wrestling daily against the ache of invisibility within his family. The familiar pang of doubt crept back, gnawing at his resolve even as he stood firm. What if my truth is too raw for them? He questioned internally, but a new, deeper part of him whispered back, you deserve to be seen. His gaze flickered from his father, whose expression was nearly unreadable, to his mother, who now stood slack-jawed, trapped somewhere between concern and curiosity. I've seen you paint these colorful worlds, his father eventually said, breaking the stillness that stretched too long. But what do they mean? What do you want from us? Ryan seized that opening, fire igniting in his belly. I want you to understand my process, to see how I connect my experiences, even if they make you uncomfortable. Aren't we all messy, flawed human beings? A small nod from his sister validated that, but his father's face remained steeled, lines of disappointment etched prominently across his forehead. It was a challenge, one Ryan had anticipated, but which still twisted more within him than he expected. Art won't change reality, Ryan. It's just paint on a wall, his father replied curtly, words like knives. No, Ryan countered, his voice steady, picking up the challenge. It exposes it. Art is the vessel for the truths we're unwilling, perhaps unable to speak. He could feel the tension mounting in the room, each breath heavy with what could come next. His mother shifted slightly, her eyes scanning him, perhaps looking for a sign of retreat. But Ryan found strength in his vulnerability. Stepping out of the shadows of fear felt like the most empowering act he had ever undertaken. I've stopped painting to please anyone else. This is me. It's the pain, the love, the disconnect. I think it reflects our family identity, he said, intensity sharpening his focus. If you can't accept that, then what does that say about us? The question hung, electric in the air. Ryan's heart thundered in his chest. He was walking a precipice of honesty and fear, hoping desperately to find balance. If there were ever a moment to assert his reality, he realized it was now or forever risk living within the confines of someone else's expectations. What will it take, Dad? What do I need to do to earn your understanding? He asked. The weight of hopelessness morphed into a potent mixture of desperation and determination. His father's gaze softened momentarily, a flicker of confusion invading his composed facade. A silent battle raged within him, but words were still elusive. Ryan's spirit surged. If you can't see me through this, how will you ever know me? He drew in a deep breath, trembling slightly with the realization that he didn't need his father's approval to validate his passion. Art was not merely his path, it was his lifeline. The silence returned thick and pregnant with unspoken possibilities. Would his father retreat into the familiarity of dismissal, or would he take a step closer, even if he didn't fully grasp this new reality? Time stretched unbearably, the moment pivotal beyond anything Ryan ever imagined. It dawned on him that the clash of tension in the room mirrored his internal struggle. He was asking for recognition not just from them, but also from himself. He took a tentative step forward, ready to bridge whatever gaps lay ahead, but his father's answer would determine the course of their relationship. Would the old patterns of denial recede, or would they reinforce the walls Ryan had fought so hard to dismantle? As his father opened his mouth to speak, Ryan's heart raced. What came next could alter the trajectory of everything he hoped for, yet dread also lingered. Would this moment lead to healing or create a deeper chasm? Before he could contemplate an answer, the doorbell rang a loud, intrusive sound that shattered the fragile silence, leaving everyone gasping for breath in the face of uncertain yet imminent revelations. Ryan's heart sank at the sound of the doorbell. It was not just an interruption. It felt like a cruel distraction from the pivotal confrontation he had braced himself for. He watched his mother's brow furrow as she exchanged a glance with his father, a flicker of annoyance coursing through the atmosphere. The moment in which he had summoned all his courage began to unravel like threads from a frayed tapestry. His father stood up slowly, the weight of Ryan's unspoken words still echoing in the air as he moved to answer the door. Ryan felt an impotent storm of frustration and fear brewing inside him. Would this interruption steal the chance he had fought so hard to create? As the door creaked open, a rush of cold air swept into the room, as if reality itself were heralding unwelcome guests. A neighbor, a friendly but oblivious couple, stood on the doorstep, interrupting the heavy moment. "Hey, just wanted to check in. Heard you were having family over." The cheerful naivety of their greetings felt like nails on a chalkboard. Ryan's father plastered on a polite smile, stepping away from the tension like a laborer escaping a tough job. "Thanks for stopping by," he replied, gesturing absent-mindedly, his earlier resolve visibly depleted as he filled the space with small talk. Ryan's frustration manifested into a burning sensation in his chest. He took a deep breath, reclaiming the moment for himself. This wasn't over. He had cracked the door of vulnerability, and he wouldn't allow it to close shut so quickly. The couple prattled on, but Ryan's focus shifted inward, reflecting on what it truly meant to be vulnerable. His decision to confront his father had been monumental, an act marked not just by hope, but by a solid commitment to authenticity. He had stood tall, ready to unveil his truth, and he must not retreat into silence just because of a minor disturbance. The idea of stepping into another artistic realm began to bloom vividly in his mind, a kingdom where his feelings could pour out without needing anybody's approval. What if he transformed this emotional upheaval into visual expression? What if he documented the churning of dread and hope he felt at that moment? Perhaps this chaos could be his next masterpiece. As the neighbor couple laughed and scrutinized pictures on their phones, Ryan grabbed his sketchbook from the nearby table. With quick strokes, he began to sketch the scene, the casual camaraderie wrapped around a fragile core of tension simmering beneath the surface. This was his escape, his way of addressing emotional conflicts head-on. Behind him, the voices dimmed, but the real dialogue hummed within him. Colors exploded across the page, a testament that not only would he be seen, he would be a force unto himself. As he continued to draw, he felt the weight of expectation begin to lift. Each stroke released a little bit of the pressure, as if the torment weighed in shades of charcoal that he could now transform into vibrant hues. Moments later, his father stepped back into the room, a tinged smile still plastered on his expression. A hint of their previous ambivalence flickered back in his eyes, caught between family strategy and the deeper truths they each struggled with. Ryan seized the moment, eyes steady. "I was just sketching how it feels to have a family," he said, allowing the weight of that statement to settle in, betraying the yearning for genuine connection. But as he looked at his father's face, He recognized a swirl of confusion adorned with curiosity, a thread of hope that maybe he would assist in unraveling instead of snipping apart. But there it was, new dread teased at the edges. Was it enough to convey the urgency for understanding? Was teaching them through art the right approach, or would it lead to further distance? As his father recovered from the brief encounter and studied Ryan's sketch, a flash of intrigue sparked. Was he beginning to understand? In that charged moment, the doorbell rang yet again, but this time it wasn't a benign neighbor. This was an intruder of a different nature, a figure from the past whose presence threatened to expose more of Ryan's inner struggles than he was ready for. He took a shaky breath, realizing that the confrontation with his father was just the beginning. He was about to face something that tested not only his resolve but also the very essence of who he was becoming. Would this turn of events push him further into the arms of acceptance, or would it reawaken old fears, dragging him down the path he had fought so hard to escape? As Ryan stood in the tension-laden air of his home, the door swung open to reveal a familiar face, his estranged grandfather, Robert. The moment their eyes met, the room bristled with decades of unresolved history. For a fleeting second, Ryan's heart dropped. Would Robert echo the same disapproval he had lain upon his family? What did his reappearance signify in a moment when Ryan was already poised to reclaim his narrative? "Thought I'd come see what the commotion was about," Robert remarked, his gaze sweeping the room. Ryan felt his father tense up beside him, caught between relief and irritation at the intrusion.
"Dad,"
his father chimed, a slight tremor in his voice. "Why didn't you tell us you were coming?" "I didn't want to disrupt anything," Robert replied, casually brushing off the discomfort in the room. He stepped closer to Ryan, gaze lingering on the mural behind him, its vibrant colors mixing past grievances with hopeful sparks of connection. For a moment, everyone stood silent. Ryan's silent plea for understanding had transformed the very essence of the dinner. It was no longer just his family facing his mural. It was an extension of their entire legacy. Each brushstroke was a silent call to bridge historical gaps, and in that pivotal instant, the potential for healing loomed larger than ever. Garnering courage, Ryan transformed the energy of the room into an explosive opportunity. "Grandpa," he began, taking a bold step forward, "I've been working on this mural to express my journey, all the ways I strive to be seen in our family, despite feeling like the outsider." Robert tilted his head, a glimmer of interest igniting in his eyes. "You're the artist now?" he asked.
"Yes."
Ryan nodded, an unexpected warmth flaring in his chest as he felt the monumental weight of expectation shift. "It's more than just images. It's an invitation to understand who I am and how I might fit in with all of you, not to erase past judgments, but to acknowledge the complexities of our family narrative." As if studying the sentences written through paint on canvas, Robert stepped closer, inspecting the layers of meaning embedded in Ryan's work. The older man's features softened, unraveling the stern lines that had defined his countenance for so long. "I see change in you, Ryan," Robert finally said, a hint of vulnerability radiating through his voice. "When I walk through those stories painted here, I can almost touch the life you've poured into it. It's not chaos, but rather a beautiful struggle." Hope surged within Ryan as he faced this validation. The grandfather he had always feared had acknowledged his identity. The barrier of misunderstanding had thinned between them like morning mist receding under the sun's penetrating light. This moment wasn't just for Ryan's growth. It was a collective acknowledgement of their past, a potential reparation of fractured family bonds moving forward. Before Ryan could respond to this delicate sentiment, his father cleared his throat, driven by an urgency to reclaim his role. "What your grandfather is trying to say, Ryan, is that art is subjective. I have always valued hard work, something I wish you'd embraced more fully." Time slowed within Ryan, yet he stood firm, embodying the artful mosaic that represented his evolution. "Dad," he said, his voice steady, "I understand you've defined success through a singular lens, but art reflects countless truths. I'll continue painting and sharing my interpretations, regardless of whether they fit within your definition of what's acceptable." The acknowledgement rippled through the room. It was the essence of his growth manifesting into an unwavering stance. He no longer sought permission. Rather, he stood as an individual who had risen above the shadows of his family's expectations to assert his worth. Ryan turned back to his grandfather, preparing to speak some more, but he realized the rich conversation they had stumbled into was dynamic. His sister, who had watched intently, finally spoke. "What if we all took a moment to share how we feel about this?" Her expression shifted, presenting a bridge instead of walls. It's not just Ryan's journey. Each generation has shaped us. What if we explored that together? In that moment, the dialogue spiraled into a collective reflection on family history where laughter mingled with apologies. Layer by layer, they peeled back the decades of resentment and misunderstanding, exposing the beauty of resilience woven through their shared experiences. As the sun transitioned towards dusk, Ryan felt his heart swell with a newfound sense of belonging, one defined not by compliance, but embracing individuality. Every word exchanged became a stroke of light on the canvas of his family's story, blending their diverse colors into one rich tapestry. That evening concluded with a powerful embrace of exploration. Ryan had not only made strides in articulating his struggles, but also created opportunities that resonated with the essence of what it meant to belong, and acceptance anchored in mutual understanding rather than conformity to expectations. As the gathering broke up and goodbyes were exchanged, Ryan stood quietly at the door, reflecting on how much he had changed. He realized he didn't have to fight for a place among them. Instead, he had forged space within himself, stretching beyond the confines of uncertainty into a realm of possibility. With a heart full of gratitude, he watched as his family drove away, knowing that the view mirrored more than just a physical distance. It represented the journey of acceptance each of them was undertaking. The mural would remain a vibrant testament of hope, resilience, and transformation, and for Ryan, it marked a beginning. With a confident smile, he turned back to his studio, engulfed in the colors and narratives that would continue to inspire him as he ventured further into his authentic creative path. Now it was his turn. A vibrant future awaited where creativity would be embraced, growth celebrated, and love reaffirmed in every stroke of his brush, opening doors to deeper connections forged with clarity. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.